One of the important things to consider about training splits is that they're almost entirely context dependent. And what do I mean by that? Historically, we used to use training splits to build up a lot of metabolic stress. So if I did a leg day, I could do 4, 5, 6 leg exercises in a row, increasing the pump to my muscle and the amount of metabolic stress. This was kind of based on the notion that metabolic stress was one of the prime drivers of muscle growth. These days, we understand that mechanical tension with a decent enough time under tension and a decent enough amount of volume is probably more important than metabolic stress. So now our training splits are dictated a little bit more by fatigue than they are by metabolic stress.
In short, because I no longer need to worry about metabolic stress, I can split exercises and sets across the week with no hit to my gains. Therefore, we can now make decisions based on recovery and fatigue, convenience, and individualization without adhering to specific training splits.
I think largely this is actually pretty good news because it means we can be more freeform with our exercise selection and what we do on different days. It actually means that a full body workout is much more viable. I think for beginners, full body makes more sense. The reason is if you miss sessions, it's not the end of the world. So if I was doing a back, chest, leg split and I missed my leg day, it would potentially be 2 weeks until I train my legs again. Whereas on a full body split, if you miss a day, it's not the end of the world because chances are all the muscle groups you had scheduled for training that day, you have already trained that week. It also means you can match exercise selection with fatigue a little bit better. So today I know I'm doing my squats and my bench press. If I was doing a split, I'd have to do squats and then maybe leg extensions and then maybe RDLs or deadlifts or something else which is quite fatiguing. I know that my lower body exercises tend to be more fatiguing, so I can break them up across the week a little bit better rather than adhering to a training split where I wouldn't have the freedom to break them up across the week. I'd have to do them in a single training session. Now there is one advantage to still pairing exercises up. So for example, I'm doing my squats and my leg extensions today, and that is giving more time for recovery. So I can now program in days where I'm fully resting and I'm not training my legs. What it also means is I can sprinkle in accessories wherever I want to. So for example, my Thursday, I can just throw calves in there. It doesn't have to adhere to a legs and back day. I can just train my calves because I want to train my calves, and that's the most convenient day to do it. Now I know a lot of people still use the splits, especially if they feel like they need loads and loads of consecutive days to recover from something like a squat or a deadlift or your harder training sessions. I have no issue with it. You can do what you want. I'm just showing that there's other options out there. For most people who aren't bodybuilders, they will need to understand that they can be flexible with their program design because they're going to need to be flexible because training isn't in the top 3 or top 5 priorities in their life. I would say for a beginner, the full body training, so it's not that you target every single muscle group on that day, it's simply that you allow the freedom to target any muscle group you want and you try to train most of the major muscle groups in a single training session. Probably works the best. I'd say the next best thing would be an upper lower split because it still allows quite a lot of freedom and it allows you to play around with your programming a bit and potentially allows more recovery. If your training days are consecutive, an upper lower split maybe makes more sense if you're struggling to recover from training legs a few days in a row. If you can allow time for breaks between your training sessions, i.e. maybe you train one day and then you take Tuesday off, then full body makes by and far the most amount of sense. Now, if you're someone training for strength or powerlifting or athleticism, for example, splits make even less sense because that metabolic fatigue that you're building up is going to potentially clash with the qualities that you're trying to develop. So actually you want to be even more freeform. Currently I'm doing a powerlifting style of training. So my days aren't broken up by muscle groups, they're broken up by exercises. So my main squat, my accessory squat, my main dead, my secondary deadlift, and so forth.